Welcome to the Irish Baptist College podcast, Let's Talk. We're back with a few standalone episodes before a new series is launched early in 2025. I want to remind you that there's a full catalogue of podcast episodes to explore wherever you download your podcasts, and I want to encourage you to go there and to listen to what's been on already. Today we have Pastor Jeff Hay from Ballycullen with us today, and we're going to talk a little bit about training and churches and thinking about churches looking at ministry teams and employing people who are training at college. So Jeff, great to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Good to be here. Thanks, Davy.
Good, excellent. How's your week been so far? Oh, it's an early in the week. We're recording on Tuesday, but how's it been?
Yeah. Well, Sunday's kicking us off, encouraging Sunday. We are going through the book of Revelation, so we're in chapter 4, and we're taken to the throne room of heaven. I'm not sure the congregation really felt that, but we are enjoying that. And Sunday's normally a busy day with things on in the evening too. Youth work is now on a Sunday evening. Monday we meet with a few of us from church and review Sunday, and they give a good critique of my sermon, so that can be humiliating or can be encouraging, but it was reasonably encouraging this past Sunday. So yeah, we're just getting into planning and for the week ahead and the usual things, planning up to Christmas, so we're coming into busy season with different extra outreach events.
What's the most exciting event planned for December, you think?
Well, we've the carol services do get outsiders in, and we're looking forward to that. And so we run 2 back to back at 4:30 and 7 o'clock, and so that's on Sunday the 15th. Okay. And we'll hope to have numerous visitors along, and hopefully some of them will sign up. We'll run Hope Explored in January, and we'll distribute around the area leaflets and flyers for it as well. So it's busy but an encouraging time.
Great. Your game back-to-back carol services. There you go.
Yeah, after Sunday morning service too. So, but when you're renting a building, it's a lot easier. One setup, and you don't sit down, and so that's what we've found is it works best for us. 4:30 and 7 o'clock. So if someone says if something on that evening, you can just go, oh, actually we have a 4:31 if you want to come along to that later. So, yeah, that works well for us.
Excellent. Yeah, you talked about being taken to the throne room of heaven on Sunday. I thought you were going to talk about the Liverpool-Man City game, but you're much more spiritual than that.
If you want, I could spend the whole interview going through that if you want, and highlight that. Arnie Slot, indeed. So, yeah.
Well, what I would really love you to do is say that Liverpool are going to win the league, so we can snip that bit and play it again at the end of the season whenever it doesn't happen.
Oh. Have I the confidence to do that? You know, mark this down. Liverpool are going to win the 2024-25 Premier League season. This is predicted in the 2nd of December, 3rd of December. There you go.
Great, Matt. We have that in recording then.
Oh, dear.
Good. Okay, well, look, thanks, Jeff, for your time. We're going to talk a little bit just about training, employing people who maybe not the finished article in ministry, and I suppose none of us really are, but are kind of moving that direction. So we'll get there in a minute, but let's start with you. Maybe you could introduce yourself, your family, church, maybe a brief testimony, interest, hobbies. We'll learn you're a Liverpool fan. Fun fact if you have one. So give us a brief introduction of who you are.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Hay from Donegal. If you're wondering maybe what the accent is, I grew up in a Christian home there. It's the most beautiful county in Ireland, but had a Christian family, and we went to a gospel preaching church, a congregational church in Raphoe. But I heard the gospel and the good news of Christ dying for my sins. There was heaven and a hell, and I believe I trusted in Jesus at a young age, and God kept me, and through school went to college in outside Belfast, Georgetown
Okay.
University. Made some good friends there, and ended up going to Green Island Baptist Church.
Hmm.
And it was there, after being involved there for a while, that I ended up going across to London to study theology. Well, did the Cornhill training course, Proc Trust first, and then was at Oak Hill. So that's a
Brilliant.
very quick, brief thing. Anything interesting? Well, I enjoy football. Liverpool. Fun fact. Actually, when I was studying, I studied with Lee Campbell up in Jordanstown, a
Okay.
pastor at Strandtown Road Baptist. And one thing we did one summer holiday, we went to South Africa, a group of us guys. And a fun fact is, I rode an ostrich, and so did Lee. But I don't think the ostrich ever carried anybody else on his back again after Lee. Uh, there's video footage to show that as well, so
Excellent.
if it's ever needed.
Excellent. Yeah, well done. I've never had anybody in the podcast who's ridden an ostrich, at least as far as I've known. So excellent,
There you
Jeff.
go. Mhm.
Great.
We can
Um,
finish it there then.
yeah. So your pastor at Ballycullen Community Church. Do you want to just introduce the church for our listeners, just in case there's people who aren't familiar with that? So location, size, types of ministries that you have on, maybe a brief history of it as well.
Okay. Yeah, it was 20-year-old church now, a 20-year-old church plant from Grosvenor Road Baptist Church in Rathmines. So, praise God, He has kept us, a group left there. A number were living out in this area. It's more south central Dublin. We're out in the
Okay.
very southwest, the suburbs, in an area called Ballycullen. That's where it started, Ballycullen Fairhouse, in a small community centre. We've moved locations probably 3 times since we've
Okay.
been here, and COVID went into other places. We're now meeting in a school in Knocklion. We've probably been in this school about 9 years, and on average might have now 150 attending on a
Brilliant.
Sunday morning, roughly. Could be more than that, or less. And it's a church of all ages, so it's not like we pick up students. We're not beside a university
Yeah. Yeah.
or anything like that. But we, unlike maybe churches in the country that maybe lose students to go to the cities, we don't
Yeah.
lose them. So we've got
Yeah.
people from babies to 90-year-olds, the whole spread, pretty evenly spread, and that means we've got ministries to children, to youth. We have young adult, student age, young professional group as that meets together, as well as home groups, connect groups, as we call them, during the week, just to keep connected and fellowship
Mm.
with one another. 6, 7 of those happening. So there's plenty going on, stuff on most evenings, so there's been encouragements.
Great.
God has saved some people from the local area,
Yeah.
and it's slow. We'd love it to be quicker, but it's at the same time you could be doing the exact same thing and have no fruit.
Yeah.
Salvation belongs to the Lord, so we are just grateful for how things have progressed. And they
Brilliant.
have even recently a good bit, so that's been encouraging.
Yeah. Brilliant. We'll maybe hear a little bit about some of those recent developments. Hopes for the future, dreams, ambitions.
Hmm.
You've talked about having 3 locations. You're thinking about a permanent building. Is that right? Hopefully, at some
We're
point.
Yeah, we're investigating. We thought we had a possible opportunity that has just recently fallen through. We're sad about that, but we trust
Yeah.
God and His timing, and He has been really good for us as a church. The church has really gotten behind the need for a building, have stepped up financially. We have a building fund, and they've been giving and generously and pledging. So hopefully, if something else comes up and we're pushing a few other doors, we might be in a better position to be able to act. But it's tricky.
Yeah.
It's not like there's lots of even church buildings that we could use.
Yeah.
We're in a bunch of different locations for our various groups. we're in a school at the minute. There's a little bit of uncertainty always
Mm,
when you're in a public school like
yeah.
that. So
Okay.
that's where we're at. So
Great.
longer term, we'd love our own building, but at the same time, are a church, or where was a church plant. We have no ambitions to be any massive church.
Yeah.
We would love to plant a church at some stage
Mm,
in the future.
yeah. Okay. Well, if any listeners know of anywhere in southwest Dublin or would like to pull in behind Ballycullen on that, you can reach out to them. I'm sure Jeff would be more than happy to chat to you.
Absolutely.
So Ballycullen has one member studying with us at the college, and uh, th- you're supporting that member in a number of different ways. But one of the ways that you're supporting that member as they study with us at the college is by employing them and giving them a role in the church. So maybe you could just outline how your church supports that, so that just kind of the role, the job description, the expectations, um, what the expectation is on the church side of things for that kind of role with someone who's studying at the same time.
Yeah, well, the church are very agreeable and behind us because of probably who he is. Andrew has started college and he grew up in the church, so he's been with at the church longer than me. Well, we've been there 15 years. He's been there 17 years. Or so. So he, it's been great to see him grow and develop. And so it was more of a case of, okay, we maybe don't have the finances here, but we'll make it happen. We want to see this guy trained. We would rather see him and family circumstances be better for him to stay on this island of Ireland and to train in person. So this was something he was keen to do and to do it part time. And so we want to give him the best possible training. So instead of juggling a job at the same time, we figured let's do our best to see can we get him alongside, involved in ministry in the church, see what the nuts and bolts of ministry is like, whilst at the same time getting the theological training up at Irish Baptist College.
Yeah. And so is there, do you have a job title for that role? Is it
Job title
fluid?
would just be
What exactly does he do day to day, week to week? Or and I know we're
yeah, yeah.
early days for you on this role as well as a church. It's not that long established.
Very early days, even because he kept his job for a couple of months as well before he's only recently come on. So it's very early days. He sort of half the time is we're saying at the college, and then at other times half with us. And so we've got him, and I actually think it's good for his own experience as well, knowing his personality. He's a key youth leader and is teaching a younger adults group, and now also with this student young adults group, 18 to 20s, and he's leading that group along with some others of us as well. So he's involved in those. He's also just become an elder. So there's elders meetings, and he's hearing and learning the real all that goes on. And so he's preaching. He preached a couple of weeks ago, great sermon, and leading and running a connect group. So, in many ways, some people are worried. I hope he's not doing too much, but he's getting a good flavor of ministry across all areas of the church.
And was the elder thing tied into the role, or is that a separate thing, Jeff?
No, that was a separate thing. I mean, we've been looking and raising up elders. If he had continued in his job, he would have been a candidate at the same time. That because we saw the character, all the qualifications, and it just is a good fit and a good balance, and he will add extra strength to the elder team.
Great, great, excellent. Super, and super to have someone at the beginning of studies recognised, to have that character and gifting and contribute to the church. Yeah,
It was an easy decision for a church because we've grown up. He also took a year out with the church as an intern
yeah,
and served in about 3 or 4 years ago, and I think that was a very important year and for him as well, and testing gifts and we've been looking at developing all along. So everybody was just like, we got to make this happen
Great.
somehow, even if we
Great.
don't have the finances. We'll trust God, and we'll say we'll part time help them, and we'll see how we go.
Super. Um, you've raised the next question I have for you. So I think there's lots of churches, lots of pastors, and I think this is great, putting together this kind of role for someone who's studying at college. We would love to do that, but we can't afford it. So so how do you fund, without being indiscreet, but how do you fund it as a church? You know, you're a young church, 20 years old, don't have your own building, you're thinking about that. Of course, other financial pressures. How do you fund? Do you fund that internally, externally, bit of both, or?
Uh, it's mainly internally, with some
Great.
partnerships with some other churches that isn't specifically that give us sometimes some gifts, and we will say we'll go give this. This will go probably towards the student Andrew, and people might be keen to do that. But we took this on whilst we're breaking even, and most of our budget is on people.
Yeah.
80% of it or whatever is apart from then missions and the like. So it was to stretch. It would stretch the congregation. We
Yeah.
had to say, guys, are you willing? And,
Yeah.
and they were. So people maybe did give more, and God willing, and the church's finances have just been gradually have been going up as well, and we're kind of hoping and trusting that'll keep being the
Continue.
trajectory, because the
Yeah.
church has been growing and having these extra people. Sometimes you go, what is there, a chicken and egg? It might be worth getting someone in who can do the ministry.
Yeah.
People come in, and then and that is what has happened. Probably even they've had that in the history, that even when they employed myself 15 years ago, they said, well, we've only financed this for 2 years, and we'll see what happens. So there is an aspect of trusting God. So maybe that was in their DNA,
Yeah.
and they're like, okay. And then we took on with a youth worker, and now Andrew, and in many ways it's not like, oh, we've got the money in the bank for this.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
we'll trust that it'll come in, and it has in different ways, and the church is growing. And I think due to some of the people that have been taken on, have helped that.
Yeah. Great. So you're alluding to this. What? And again, I recognise we're early in this kind of arrangement in Ballycullen, so this is all still new. And so it's maybe, what do you hope the benefits will be to the church by having someone who's a theological student employed, and what might be the benefit to Ballycullen in this instance?
Well, I think it's having just that extra hand to do ministry, who is getting the theologically training and equipped at the same time.
Yeah.
So he will grow in his understanding of handling the Bible, of biblical truth and doctrine, and it is essential. So you need people raised up who have that understanding with all the cultural trends and shifts as well. How will that be a benefit to us? People qualified and able to do ministry is just going to be a benefit. So there will be times of the year where, as I say, we're working it out. From May, June, I'm thinking summertime, he should have a little bit extra time.
Yeah.
And we'll use him more and see his gifts develop. And then at other times of the year, he'll be busier at college.
Yeah.
And so we are learning as we go. But to see him now freed up to meet up with some of the young guys, to be involved in this, he's already doing more than he couldn't, and more is happening in the church that is going to ultimately build up, I think, God's people. So if you can do it, and if you've got the right person, you'll make it happen. It'll be a benefit.
And I think that kind of multiplication of ministry, you can kind of, I think it happens even if there is just a sole pastor, because you raise people up and you see them grow in their gifting. But if you can bring in more hands, it can kind of accelerate that multiplication of ministry, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. In some ways, I would love to even do more. I'd love to. We haven't been able to have we took on interns, even the likes of Andrew,
Mm,
a few years back, and could only do it because he stayed at home. He funded it pretty much himself. We
yeah,
couldn't, but if we had the funds to run more interns, and I love the idea of training up more people that can multiply the ministry, who
yeah,
are able to develop others, and so it's crucial. It's part of our job.
for sure. Are there key ways you think having this job alongside studying will benefit Andrew or any other potential future um, person in that kind of role? But is there any way you think it benefits Andrew to be operating in that church sphere in an employed sense at the same time as studying?
Yeah, well, I think I'll keep him grounded in the reality of church life
Hmm.
and people. I suppose there is the danger with some theological education, and then when you're taking in all this information, and if you start to pass it on to others, and you're forgetting the reality of where that not everybody coming on a Sunday morning is itching to hear who's the author of Hebrews.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's there's a danger that people just blurge out lots of
Hmm.
information and knowledge if you're just taking it in all the time. But I think if he's regularly doing ministry, seeing it, and I actually think even Andrew's talking specifically here. He's an intelligent guy, uh, but to do youth work and children's work alongside that, and to realize I need to communicate God's word in a way that they can understand, is actually really good training for some people. So I think having the two together can work. There's benefits, I'm sure, going full time and interacting with the students.
Hmm.
But whatever way they are, if they're full time or part time, they need, in my mind, that church
Yeah.
connection as well.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why placements form a backbone in our course. But obviously, they're by necessity truncated, the term time and that kind of thing. And so I think in my mind, this is kind of almost a full time placement through the
Yeah.
what the duration of studies, and it's great to be reminded that everything that's going on in the classroom is for that benefit of putting it into practice in real life.
And he'll hear what's being discussed in elders meetings, and then can go and have maybe extra questions he wouldn't have even have thought of when he is now in the classroom, and hopefully stump the likes of you guys, and yeah.
Well, it's usually the other way around. In the classrooms, the answers are usually very black and white. Sitting in an elders meeting, it becomes a lot grayer about what the right answer is, doesn't
Maybe not with our elders. We've got good. Yeah, yeah.
it? Good, good. Um, what about the impact on you, Jeff? So pastoral ministries, no DOS. Weeks are busy. They're full. There's lots of demands in terms of preaching, visitation, and now you've added this responsibility into your duties of kind of another staff member looking after caring for them. I don't know if you're technically the line manager, but you'll probably operate a little bit like that, and just then trying to feed into him. Obviously that's been happening to some degree already, just with the relationship and his growing up in the church and you being his pastor. um, but does it impact on you positively or negatively in terms of trying to fit that into your week and all your other duties? Um, why commit to something like this whenever it does impinge to some degree?
To be honest, I just see it as part of the job. So, in one sense, an essential part of the job, because it does mean ministry can multiply. And I think I need to be better at develop. But I mean, now that he's leading a home group, and he's going to be caring for those ones, and if we're communicating, that's your first point of call to for pastoral issues, and then they can get passed on to me. I, it takes up time, but in my mind, the benefit is uh, can be multiplied if you've got the right person suitable for the job. It's just a benefit, and I see it from whether it's the pastoral letters to Timothy. It's our job to be involved in entrusting to reliable men. The 2 Timothy 2:2, who will be qualified to teach others. So it's not like, oh, this is taken away from my job. I just see it as part of my job and what we should be all doing. And maybe because some of that happened to me growing up, and some folks invested in me, and then I was like a placement student myself in London. I just see the importance, and that it can be a benefit
Mm.
depending on the person. Like, that's not the reality. Is
Yeah,
just
yeah. Well, the reality
everybody.
is it always depends on the people, doesn't it?
But if they're good, this is just gonna be hopefully a benefit not only for your church but for God's kingdom as a whole. If we're sending
Yeah,
them off
yeah,
somewhere else at the end of it.
yeah. And I think that's probably a helpful corrective, just in terms of it. It's not really an addition to the job or role of a pastor. It's part and parcel of that. To see others raised up, trained, and equipped for that's what we're to do: equip the saints for ministry.
Yeah, and I think it's an enjoyable part of the job, I suppose, to be honest.
Yeah.
You're involved in training leaders, Davy. You have the easiest part of it, all in that role. I mean, it's a joy. You've got the keen guys that want to learn.
For sure, for sure.
So yeah, it's takes time, but it's enjoyable time.
So sometimes Mark in their essays, I'm not sure they do want to learn, but most of the
Fair
time.
enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I wouldn't like the marking of the essays myself. Yeah, that's true.
But no, you're right, and it's I suppose for me it's such a privilege. So I felt my God calling and leading me towards pastoral ministry, and just through circumstances, doors opening, doors closing, it was clear that actually God wasn't leading me to that; He was leading me to this. But what a privilege to be involved in training pastors and missionaries and evangelists.
Hmm.
And it is, you've got guys who are keen to be involved, to sacrifice, to serve, and to have some input to shape them is real privilege. So yeah, no, definitely. And in many ways, I'm not sure I'm going to say it's the easiest job, but it's certainly a very enjoyable job, as you said, Jeff.
Only
Um,
teasing, Dave. Only teasing. Yeah. You
yeah.
just scribble and write a few more books too. Yeah.
Great.
It's more than Matt Campbell's doing there. I'm trying to get him to edit something, so I'll throw in something to give him a job. He has to cut something out. There's
Yeah.
something he can cut out to give him a bit of work to do.
I'm going to advocate that stays in. Yeah. Matt sets the camera up and then sits behind it.
And does another interview next month.
Great. So my hope is that there'll be other churches, there'll be other pastors listening to this, wrestling with this, maybe hoping that they can replicate this and do this in their own church as they think about time commitments, as they think about committing finances, as they think about maybe finding the right person to fulfill that role and all of that. Do you have any words of advice or counsel to those pastors and churches as they maybe begin to think about that or attempt to establish something similar?
Yeah, I mean, a lot will probably depend on their church as
Yeah.
well, because a pastor might be keen to do it, and if the church isn't behind it, it was easy for us with the Andrew growing
Yeah.
up in the church
Yeah.
and everybody fully behind it, and then being willing to take the risk,
Mm-hmm.
financially to take him on, and you're breaking even, but we're going to take him on, and but we certainly did not, we ourselves, just as a church, for his training, did not want him working in a job part-time and studying part-time. For him to be trained for ministry, if he's doing the part-time study, we want him involved in ministry in the church. He's already had experience in the working world, and this would be much better for him. And so that's taking a risk, but there probably are other ways, and we can get help from outside if we specifically asked it from other churches. There's some trusts that hopefully we're getting his fees paid through, and so it don't let, I don't know, finances, worries. If you've got a person that you think is qualified, able, we should be doing our best to try and make it happen. And we as a churches should be taking that on to support them in it. I didn't necessarily want Andrew to be the one, whilst maybe he can do a little bit of support raising himself, we are more taking it on ourselves as a church now. So I would just encourage to give young guys opportunities to preach, to lead, and then actually get behind them practically to make it happen, if we can. But we had a very supportive congregation that more of them would have been like, is that going to be enough for those guys for him to survive on? They're asking that question rather than, because they want to look out for him.
Which is a
And
great
so that's
encouragement.
great. Absolutely. And so, yeah, and we just keep that a constant, conversation as well. Is everything okay financially? Are you getting
Yeah.
enough support? And we'll do as best as we can.
Yeah. Um, Sorry, I'm going through in a question I didn't warn you about here. You said you've experienced a little bit of this through your training. So you were Cornhill, Oak Hill. Um, in what way did it really benefit you moving forward in ministry, having that opportunity to have that bit of practical experience alongside training?
Yeah, and even before that, uh, a big credit to Green Island Baptist elders at the time. They gave me opportunities to preach and to be involved and encouraged. Sent me out to Cornell. There was possibly it was to come back, but then plans changed. So I just saw the benefit, and maybe over in England, saw more churches at that time running internship programs, seeing people raised up for ministry, seeing people raised up that I think back where maybe I grew up, people were reluctant to te- try. These were almost, let's try it, let's see if ministries do you feel called now. I do think you need to have an internal calling, but an external recognition from others, and then God sovereignly were opening and the doors, so all those things need to fall into place. But maybe in some of my circles growing up, it wasn't as encouraged as much, and it was more left to the person as an individual. Do they feel called? And then they had to sort it out themselves, take the initiative all themselves, rather than let's, as a church and as an eldership, think who can we be raising up, encouraging and supporting in that role. And so I maybe saw that modeled. I was encouraged by myself. Then I was at churches over there that were doing the same thing and sending people off to your Proc Trust Cornhill courses that might have been part time, some full time. I did it full time. Others were doing it part time. And then the same when I was at theological college there and being involved in a church. So I see the church is key in raising up, identifying, sending out, and then we need to practically support it. And I've seen that probably happen to myself, and so it just becomes second nature. But it shouldn't be seen as taken away from the church. It's the multiplying. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
even that's
for
why I would
sure.
love to do more with us. Our interns that we've had in the past have been a benefit, and now even if they've gone into secular work, boy, they're with that 1 year out in the Bible handling and the training that we did, they're the best youth group leaders, study leaders that we've ever had, and so if yeah, it's we need to maybe encourage it more.
Yeah, and have that broader vision that some kind of theological training or ministry experience doesn't always need to lead to vocational ministry, that it's useful
No.
and beneficial as lay leaders in the church and as faithful members to have that under your belt. And um,
Yeah.
yeah,
We have a girl who was an intern for a year. She's a great Bible teacher now. She has taught at some women's events and down here, and uh, Carol, and she is just a great youth leader to have, and you just are like can trust them. So then but they may go to other churches, move houses or whatever. But you're just like there is. I would love to have more folks who have had a year's training, but that again that can be takes time. But then it multiplies the ministry, and they can be discipling two or three others, during the week.
yeah. Well, look, that's great, Jeff. We're so grateful for the Ballycullen Church for their support of Andrew, for their contribution to the life of the association as well, and we hope that we can encourage and support you guys a little bit. And there's one more thing you're involved with, and that's been setting up a Dublin hub. So an evening class hub is now live and active in Dublin, which is great. You and the other Dublin pastors have been part of that. I just wondered if you could outline how you might think that venture might be beneficial to the churches in Dublin.
Yeah, again, I think it's beneficial in that if you've got keen people in your congregation that want that little bit more in-depth study, there might have been 10 or 12 at the Dublin hub first lot of courses, but we had 4 or 5 from Ballycullen, and they have had a positive experience. And again, I think then they feeding back into the church life will just be so much better equipped. Potential future leaders, elders, other things like that. So the Dublin hub is great to see it up and running, and hopefully it will grow and develop and more catch on to it. So yeah, I'm excited that has happened and that we have these links.
Yeah, well, we've been really excited, and it's been great to see it. We have had 10 or 12 in the first 2 modules, and I think people have been enjoying it, so no, it's great. So we're grateful for the churches in Dublin participating in that. A lot of you guys are doing the teaching as well on that, so thank you so much. Jeff, you'll be glad to know that's all the questions I have for you.
There you go. Okay. I'm sure that Liverpool answer might end up resurfacing at some point.
Yeah, I've got what I wanted from you, so...
And if it comes true, what's going to happen?
It'll probably be buried and never spoken of again.
Yeah. Can I ask you your prediction for Manchester United getting into the top 4, or is it going to be a relegation battle?
Nah, Ruben's army. We're marching on, so we are. Yeah. So top 4, and we're going to put Arsenal out of the FA Cup as well. That was the draw last night.
Okay.
Yep.
Ruben's
win a
army.
European Cup. It's
Just
all
like
rosy
Ten Hag's army. And David Moyes' army, and Jose Mourinho's army, and all those.
I did have a fleeting moment whenever Ten Hag got the sack that I wanted Big Sam Allardyce to come in and keep us up, but I think I'm happier with Ruben Amorim. So
you still might be calling him with 5 games to go.
Yeah, great. Look, thank you so much, Jeff, and thank you, listeners, for your time. Hope this has been a helpful and encouraging conversation. We're grateful for your engagement in the college and participation with us. We ask that you continue to stand with us as we magnify Christ, advance the gospel, and strengthen the church.